Hi everyone and welcome to this week's GuitarQuest live stream lesson. I hope you're all well. So this week we will be continuing kind of where we left off, sort of towards, just before the summer break really. So last week we went over a few exercises from the book that covered sort of the various different aspects of what we've talked about in GuitarQuest 3. And today we're going to go back over exercises 25 and 26, which were the most recent couple of exercises we played. And we are hopefully going to get on to some new stuff. So for those of you who might have seen the YouTube short I did during the week, it's about moving up the fretboard and playing a little bit higher up. So that's where we're hopefully going to go if we have time. So just a couple of things to think about. If you have any notification devices, you know, mobiles, emails, that kind of thing, then best to turn them off. Give ourselves this undivided attention on guitar for half an hour. If there's any children watching, then let's just have an adult in the room just to help explain a few bits and pieces should things be a bit difficult to understand. We have the chat function as well, so if you've got any questions as we work our way through, then please do just leave a question and I will either answer them as we go or come back to them at the end. So I think that's pretty much it. So let's just check our tuning before we get started. So this is our bottom E. So just try and make sure your guitar or your sixth string sounds the same as that. Okay, and then on to the A. And then D. B, second string, and then finally our top E string. Okay, cool, so that's pretty much that. Remember with the guitar, try not to let it slide away from you as you're playing, try and keep that posture nice and upright, and yeah, let's get stuck in. So what I thought we could do is have a go at number 22 as a bit of a warm-up. So this is the last one that we played last week. We have an E flat to think about, which is our second string 4th fret, and you want to try and use your pinky finger if you can. There's also E naturals, so you want to watch out for where we've got E flats and E naturals. And in the music in GuitarQuest 3, as you look at it, we've got the flat sign next to the ones we want to play as E flat. The flat sign being that sort of slightly lopsided looking B letter. Also we have to move up to the 3rd position, so we have to kind of get our first finger up to the G at the 3rd fret so that we can reach the 3rd finger up to the A at the 5th. Other than that, everything else is just kind of as normal really. So let's give it a go. We're going to ignore the repeats, so just play it all the way through once and eventually finish on that high F at the end. So, good luck everybody. I'll count us in, we'll play it after 4 and then we will get on to the next stuff. So, here we go. So, 1, 2, 3, 4. Open E there, up to the 3rd position here. Back to the 1st position. Now low F. B flat there, sorry I forgot to mention that. Open E here. Then F up to the 3rd position. Back to the 1st. Open E. And then an F to finish off with. Okay, cool. Hopefully that went well. If it did, give yourself a pat on the back. I forgot to mention that all our Bs are played as B flat because we've got the flat symbol in the key signature at the start. Hopefully you picked up on that. Obviously we've been over this one a few times before, so if you're finding it difficult, please do go and check out the older lessons. It'll be 3 or 4 lessons back probably that we covered it. Yeah, they're all on my YouTube channel, so just go and check that out and yeah, work your way through it if you need to. But let's move on. So we are going to move on to exercise 25, the Grand Gardener. And if you remember from when we talked about this in a previous lesson, which is a couple of months back now, the Grand Gardener is basically the same melody as the Gardener from GuitarQuest 2, but this time we're adding in some bass notes. So if you followed that part of the GuitarQuest course, the melody hopefully is okay because you've already played it. So the challenge then is just to add bass notes in. Obviously if you haven't done that, then the whole thing is going to probably be a bit of a challenge, but we give it a go and we see what happens. So things to look out for, we've got some dynamics. Again, I don't tend to worry too much about the dynamics, particularly on these lessons, because I'm not sure how well they come across via the microphone, but feel free to put them in. P is piano, which is soft, F forte, which is loud. We've got a couple of crescendos, so that means we want to get louder as sort of where that arrow of the crescendo is. And then as we come down onto the last line, we have a diminuendo, which is the opposite of a crescendo. So we start loud and we get a bit quieter. And we also have the roll instruction, which means we're going to slow down. So in the last 2 bars, we just sort of take our foot off the gas and just allow things to slow up. And it's kind of quite a good analogy when you have ralls in music, or rallentandos. So what you want to watch out for is if you're at this tempo here, when you see rall and it's slowed down, you don't just drop to the slower speed. It's like you're putting the brakes on when you're driving. So you're at this speed, you put the brakes on and you gradually come down to a slower tempo. So yeah, something to watch out for when you're playing it on your own. It's not a kind of a step sort of jump, it's just a gradual ramp, if you like, in slowing down. So in terms of the notes, things to watch out for, there's no sharps or flats, so that's a good thing, I think, one less thing to think about. We are going to be reaching up to note A, 1st string, 5th fret. And so after we've played that, we typically hit that note and then we're coming back to our sort of open playing position. So you just want to have that in mind. So there's a little bit of jumping around, but it's quite common to do if you're playing here. You just kind of reach up for that note really, and hopefully you don't move your hand too much. You know, it's a little movement that, you know, with practice you get used to it. Other than that, I think the rest of the notes should be reasonably straightforward. So let's give it a go. We'll take it nice and slow. Obviously we've been over this one in more detail in previous lessons before. So again, if you find this tricky, just go back and watch the old ones and there'll be more detail in what's actually going on. But let's give it a go. So there's 3 beats in the bar, so in 3/4 time signature. So after 3 this time, it's nice and slow. Here we go. So 1, 2, 3. Up to the 5th again. Bass note. So it goes something like that anyway. What we might do is play it one more time, but actually go a little bit slower. Yeah, sometimes I say let's go slower and I get sort of a couple of lines through and think, maybe this is a bit fast actually. So we'll try it again, a bit slower, and then we'll go on to number 26. So here we go, after 3 from the top. So 1, 2, 3. Penultimate line. Last line. Start slowing up. Okay, so that's that. Obviously, if you play a tune faster when you have a slowdown, it's easier to make that effect more pronounced. When we're playing it slowly in the first place, slowing down can almost feel a little bit strange because you almost need a bit more energy in the song to begin with. However, you know, if you need to play it slow, that's where you're at, you know, and then gradually as you can pick up the tempo, that row will perhaps just make more of an impact, shall we say. So, okay, so we're going to move on from that. So let's turn the page and we go on to exercise 26, which is fading star. So this one, we are back in 4/4, but we have 2 sharps. So we have an F sharp and a C sharp to think about. So you may remember from earlier in the course I talked about if you've got 2 sharps, F sharp and C sharp, you might well play in the second position. Actually in this one we're not going to because of the nature of the notes and how they're kind of sitting. So we are going to just stick to our normal playing position. Now in terms of the structure, we play lines 1 and 2 as normal, then lines 3 and 4 are the first time bars of the repeat section. So we just play through the first page as normal, then we go back to the beginning for the repeat, play lines 1 and 2, and then we go on to the second page. At the top of the second page, so bars 9 and 10, there's the repeat marks there, so we have to play those twice, and then we come on and finish off obviously with the last couple of lines. And with the last, well actually, so throughout we've got the word row kind of at the end of most lines, not all but most lines. So what we're going to try and do is slow down a little bit at the end of each line. So if we then looked at the second line, for example, or say the first 2 lines, we've slowed down at the end of line 1. At the start of the second line we have the instruction a tempo, so that's telling us to go back to our normal tempo. So after we slow down, we just come back to normal, and that is kind of like a step back up. It's not a kind of gradual speed up. We want to kind of get straight back up there. Then we slow down at the end of the second line, third line, straight back up again, and so on. And it just kind of works its way through like that. So again, like we'll take it at a relatively slow tempo to begin with. So those rows might feel a little bit lethargic maybe in some ways. So we just do as best we can with that. The other thing to watch out for is at the very end we have a fermata, which is that's similar. In fact, if I just bring the music up, I'll just explain that briefly. So I don't know if you can see that. Sorry, I'm just going to just make the mouse a little bit bigger. So when we come to the end, well, I should say just quickly, that's our RAL there, that's our tempo. So so those are the instructions we're trying to observe as we work our way through. And then this symbol here, we talk about it down here, the fermata, and it's just basically we just pause on that note. Now when that happens at the end of a piece of music, especially if we're slowing down, it's not really going to make a huge impact, to be perfectly honest. But if you see it in the middle of a piece, you know, it's kind of at the artist's discretion, should we say, or the guitarist's discretion. So you might hold it for however long you feel is appropriate before you continue. So obviously, if you're playing with other musicians, that can become a little bit of a challenge. But if you're on your own, you should be okay, hopefully. So, and because ours is just at the end, it's the final note, so it doesn't really matter that much. In theory, it would be about, we've got 2 notes E at the end. How long do you let those hang, perhaps, before you kind of perhaps, we talked about that before as well, fold the hand over just to kind of cut that sound off. So yeah, it's up to you. So but let's go from the top. We'll take it nice and slow again. We'll do the repeats and we'll just see how they go, really. So after 4, so 3 and 4 and slowing down, back to normal, slowing down again, back to normal on the 3rd line, slowing down again, slowing down, back to the 1st line, slowing down again, 2nd line back to normal, and slowing down. We're going to go to the 2nd page, repeat that line, and then the 2nd line on the 2nd page, slowing down, back to normal, and I'm going to slow down again, and then we have that sort of fermata kind of idea. We just hit that 6th string and just sort of let it do its thing, really. So I say it's kind of, when you're playing on your own, it's sort of up to you. How do you interpret the music and that kind of thing? And you know, we'd all be roughly the same, but probably not exactly the same. And that's kind of the key. And that's what makes music great, isn't it? Because you could see the same piece of music played by different people, and they play it slightly differently. Maybe you prefer one to the other, or maybe you just like having variety. But it's, you know, that's the great thing about the flexibility of music. So we'll leave that one there. Obviously, if you've got any questions, well, on that or anything we've done so far, please do fire away. But otherwise, we are going to get on to this new idea of playing further up the fretboard. So if we turn the page, so to page 22 of GuitarQuest 3, I'm just going to bring the music back up onto the screen. So, not that one, so you can see it. So as we turn the page, we've got 2 new notes first of all. So this note here, this is our B, as it says here, 1st string, 7th fret, and we're going to go with the 3rd finger because I should have said at the top, we're going to be playing in the 5th position, which means our 1st finger is going to line up at the 5th fret, and I'll demonstrate this in just a second. And we've also got this new note C. It's at the 8th fret on the 1st string, and we're going to use our pinky finger. And then we're going to have a go at this sort of scale thing here. But let me just get that off the screen. Okay, so when we're in the 5th position, our first finger, well, lines up at whatever position we're playing in. So in this case, fret 5. So 5th position, fret 5, first finger. Then we're going to take the 1 finger per fret logic after that. So we have B, that's our new note at the 7th fret. Depending on what guitar you got, you may well have a dot here. You may well have one at the 5th and the 7th, possibly the 3rd, depends what guitar you got. You might have one at the 9th as well. Yeah, and those dots are there just to kind of help mark things out, you know, so you get a feel, you know, if you're jumping around the fretboard, it's like you can sort of more quickly see where you need to jump to. So yeah, so we've got A at the 5th fret, B at the 7th, and then C at the 8th. And we'll try and use our pinky finger for that. Now, if we look at the notes in the 5th position, well, actually, let's take a step back. So the notes on that next section, we have our C, D, E, F, G, and then A, B, C. So we could play it that way, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. But typically when we're playing guitar, we don't really want to be kind of doing that kind of movement up and down the strings. We want to go across the strings more. And as we've sort of talked about previously, we can find the same note in different places on the guitar. So with that in mind, we're going to think about C, and C is going to be 3rd string, 5th fret. That's probably the easiest way of just getting started. So if that's C, we know D is 2 frets higher. So when we play it here, it's the same logic on the 3rd string. So D is 2 frets higher than C. So that's going to be at the 7th fret. And our E, we have talked about this before when we were playing one of the earlier songs, but hopefully you remember E's at the 5th fret. This time we're going to be using the 1st finger. So we've got C, 3rd string 5th, D, 3rd string 7th, E, 2nd string 5th. When we go to F, if you think about like the open E, F is at the 1st fret, so it's kind of adjacent. So if our E is at the 5th fret, F is therefore at the 6th, and then F to G, there's a couple of, 1 fret in between, so our G is now going to be at the 8th fret. So remember, if F is here at the 1st fret, we go up 2 and we get to the G. So same here, F at the 6th and then up to G at the 8th. So those 5 notes then, we've got C 5th fret, D 7th, E 5th fret, F 6th fret, and G 8th fret. And then we've got A, we know, we've been playing that in a couple of tunes recently. Obviously we're going to use the 1st finger now because we're in the 5th position. So that's 1st string 5th. Then we're going to go to our new notes B and C. So we talked about those. So the B is at the 7th fret and C is at the 8th. And we want to try and use the 3rd finger for the B and the pinky for the C. So it's worth practicing that, and you can just sort of run like C, D, E, F, G, A, B and C. And it can be worth it as well. You know, we did this earlier in the course, like way back. You know, we were playing, learning the notes and just saying, you know, practice saying them out loud. You know, we were doing like G, A, B, C, D, or whatever it was. We can do the same here. So we can just sort of practice going C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and C, and then we can come back again. So C, B, A, G, F, E, D, C. So the more you can familiarise yourself with those notes there, then obviously the easier the next exercise is going to be, because the next exercise, number 27, is going to be focusing on playing in 5th position. So let's have a go. We may not get through all of it. We might just try the first section. Yeah, so looking at number 27 then, we basically start kind of like with the notes we just played. I should say as well, when we run through the notes like that, that's just a C major scale as well. So we played one down here. So this is just an octave higher. So an octave being like sort of distance from C to C, the interval I should say. So anyway, back to number 27. So we start on the C, we work our way up the scale a little bit. So you've got C, D, E, and then we're going to jump to G. Oh, question has come through. Do we go down with the same fingers? Yes. So yeah, if you were going fingers, digress slightly. So fingers 1, 3, 1, 2, 4, 1, 3, 4. Coming down would be 4, 3, 1, 4, 2, 1, 3, 1. So it should be exactly the same up and down. So yeah, hopefully that answers that. Okay, so back to number 27 then. So we are going to go C, D, E, and then G. So we're skipping that F, and then we come back to the E. So notice in the music we've got the little numbers next to the notes. So you've got the 1 next to the C for your first finger, 3 for the D, 1 for the E, and then the pinky. The 4 telling us is the pinky finger going up to the G. Then the next E's, I haven't got any numbers written next to them, but because we've already played an E, the assumption is, you can probably figure that out, it's going to be the same. If we wanted it to be something different, it would tell us. So, okay, so we have this in the first bar. And as we come into the second bar, we're going to hit the F at the 6th fret, and that's the little 2 there, that's our middle finger. Down to the E, back to the F, up to the G, which is our 8th fret, and then 1st string 5th fret for the A. So I'll just play that bar again. So it's your F, F, E, F, G, A. And then as we come into the 3rd bar, we've got A again, then we're going to go back to G, 2nd string 8th, back to the A at the 5th fret. B at the 7th fret with our 3rd finger, that's our new note obviously, and then the C at the 8th fret with the pinky. So in terms of the timing, we're going 1, 2, and 3, and 4. And we just talk about the 4th bar as well. So when we do the 4th bar, we come to the B, 1st string 7th fret with the 3rd finger. Then we go down to the A at the 5th, down to G, 2nd string 8th, and then we come back to the B, 1st string 7th. So let me just string the first 4 bars together for you, just so you get a feel for how it's going to sound. Don't worry if you struggle with this initially, because if we were playing it down here, probably be okay with those notes. Maybe I didn't demonstrate that well, but because you've played them, it's it's kind of within the comfort zone, hopefully anyway, so you're probably all right. When you come up here, this is just sort of new territory, so don't worry if it takes a little while to get used to it. But here we go. So starting on that C, it's just the first 4 bars. Here we go. So it's I'll count soon, so if you want to play along, obviously please do attempt to do so. Okay, so 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3, 4. And the 4th bar, and then in theory even we would repeat those first 4 bars, then we do the next 4 bars, play them again, then we go back and do the first 3 bars again because we have our coda instruction, and finally finish off with the coda. So I think let's leave that there. I'm going to put the tune on just so you can have a listen to it. The backing track is on my YouTube channel, so you can check that out there anyway, but I'll put it on in a second. And obviously we're only really today interested in the first 4 bars, and we'll cover the rest of it next week. So, have a listen, let me know what you think. So, number 27. Okay, here we go. So hopefully you could hear that all okay. That's the tune. We're just going to be, as you said, just working on the first 4 bars this week. So see how you go. Obviously above that we've got the notes in the 5th position. As we mentioned, it's basically a C major scale, so running over that and just trying to get the notes down as best you can. That's going to be a really invaluable thing to do. So yeah, play about with that, see how you go. So next week we'll probably run over maybe exercise 25, definitely exercise 26, and then we will get stuck more into number 27 here, try and finish that off and see how we go. So but yeah, we'll leave it there for today. So very best of luck with the practice this week. Remember, you want to be trying to practice 4 or 5 times a week if you can, maybe more if it's possible. And yeah, as I mentioned, all the backing tracks are on my YouTube channel, so please do go and check them out, listen to them. You can watch the video back for any bits and pieces that you thought, oh, actually I could do them going over that a bit more. Just watch it back and replay it as many times as you need. That's the beauty of it, really. So otherwise, if you enjoyed the lesson, please give it a thumbs up. Please share it around if you think anybody you know might be interested in joining us. And other than that, we will be back here same time next week. So very best luck with the practice. Look forward to hearing how you get on, and I will see you all soon. All right, take care there, everybody. Bye bye.